Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is riding the wave. And I think we all experience ebbs and flows of energy in our lives. And that's what we're talking about today, how to make the most of it on either end. And before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells and your molecules, your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the tickling, the tingling, all that sensation, and allow that sensual experience to bring you present into your physical body right here, right now, into this remarkable form that enables you to experience life. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. We're kicking off another new week. They just keep coming. I guess we get to be grateful for that, right? So ebbs and flows, riding the wave. I have noticed that recently it feels like there's more happening, like things that I've been working on for a long time. It feels like the kind of the floodgates have been opened, at least maybe not floods, but there's a steady stream of movement and activity on things that felt stagnant for a really long time. And I don't know if I'm alone in experiencing that or if you guys are experiencing that as well. But it brings to mind how we get to ride the wave. And I know, I know for me that until I catch myself, the tendency when things feel kind of stagnant is to be pushing against the river, and rather than enjoying that and appreciating that as a deepening or as a time of revitalization, as a time of rest and replenishment. Oftentimes I've found myself feeling impatient. And so what we're talking about here is checking that impatience. And then on the other side of things, when things start moving, there can be an anxiety or anticipation about, oh my gosh, it's moving so quickly. Things are moving so quickly, rather than actually just relaxing into it and riding that wave and enjoying it and appreciating it rather than resisting it. So I guess really today's conversation is about releasing resistance, which is kind of our perpetual conversation, releasing resistance in all different arenas. But here, I agree with you, Rosalind. Rosalind says more activity with the season of spring, while winter felt like bedding down in a cocoon. I 100% agree. And, we have all these conveniences that allow us to kind of transcend the limitations of the seasons. So for instance, we have electric lighting. So, even though in the winter it gets dark early, we don't necessarily curtail our activities any earlier. And yet we need the deepening, the inward time, the gestation period, the recuperation period. And then with spring, there's this vibrance and this explosion of activity. And sometimes when we experience that in our lives in terms of opportunity and activity, action, it can feel like a lot. And so rather than resisting it, we get to ride with the wave, you know, like it's kind of, not that I'm a surfer, believe me, I'm not, but you know, you paddle out and that's kind of a quiet time, and then you wait for the wave, and then the wave comes and it's this huge rush of energy, and you can be afraid of it and resist, and then you're going to not be able to ride that wave. You'll fall perhaps, or you can just surrender yourself to the exhilaration of it and allow and embrace that flow. And I think we can do that with gratitude. It's really important to notice how when and if we stop ourselves. So I've experienced other times in my life where it looked like things were accelerating, and I just sort of closed up in the face of the acceleration. Hello, Lisa. Good morning. So good to have you here with us this morning. We're talking about riding the wave. And so in these times in the past where things started accelerating, I saw myself kind of close up and shut things down, shut it off. And most recently, there have been some things that have happened that feel like this great acceleration, and I take that same deep breath, but instead of shutting down, just go, you know, like the hands in the air on a roller coaster, is like embrace it and experience it and celebrate it and rise to it, and just say, know that it's part of the rhythm of life, is to come in these ebbs and flows, right? Where there's outward, there's inward, you know, where there's a cycle of this movement from action to rest or inaction or gestation, or, you know, what often feels like waiting. So you guys, if you've been following these conversations, you know, it wasn't that long ago where I was talking about waiting and impatience and all that kind of good stuff. And now it feels like there's really some movement and activity, and there's a lot percolating, and it's very, very exciting. And I wanted to acknowledge that I had a thankfully brief moment of anxiety and like a bit of fear around it. I think anxiety is a better word, you know, anxiousness. And I recognized it. I was like, no, not this time. This time we're going to roll with it. This time we're going to ride this wave and not resist it and celebrate it, because it's here for you. Remember that life is happening for us and through us rather than to us. And if we believe that everything is in its perfect timing, then we get to relax and ride the wave, or relax and be in the calm period of perhaps gestating and embracing that as well. So when we get to embrace the moment, that's life. Those are the moments that life is occurring. I mean, life is occurring all the time. It's just that we often separate ourselves from the experience of it by wanting to be someplace else or wanting it to be different. And So as we can allow ourselves to embrace the way that things are in the moment that they are, and to deepen into that, or to settle into that, to allow ourselves the experience of it, then there's such a much richer engagement with life, right? And so I'm just thinking about, and it's kind of maybe a weird segue, but I'm thinking about when dreams come true. You know, when things that we've been hoping for, wishing for, dreaming of, start coming true, what goes on for you? This is part of riding the wave, by the way, because it's like, well, have we identified ourselves with the dreaming or with the dream? And then when the dream comes true, now what? You know, what it's kind of like the whole conversation that we have around goals, right? Like the issue around goals is that they are finite, right? And they are either kind of pass fail. You either make it or you don't. And I think when dreams come true, then what? You know, then you get to create another dream, right? Or maybe you get to create a dream that's so big that it can ever be unfolding, so that it's not defined by a specific outcome. So this was really, really interesting. Yesterday, I had the occasion to share my vision of the eco park. So things are, what I'm referring to, if you guys have been around for a while, you've heard me talk about my vision of the eco park. And the eco park is on this very grand scale, a global resource center and destination and kind of theme park and World's Fair type thing, where people will be able to experience all different solutions around the current ills that we're facing on the planet, mostly that we've created, and sustainability. It's all about that. And so there's a lot of activity around that right now for me, which is very exciting, and making connections with people that I think are going to be instrumental in that, and also in the water cycle symposium that I've been talking to you guys about, that I want to be launching next spring. So let me back up to where was I going with this? New dreams. So when we make a dream, so in this conversation, the person that I was talking to said, well, the biggest thing is to get it done. And I said, no, it's not. And meaning the eco park, like to get it in existence, like that's the focus, that's the biggest thing. And I said, no, that's not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is the living the process of getting there, right? Because I don't know if the eco park is ever going to happen. So if that's the biggest thing, if that's the thing, the culmination of it, if that's the thing that gives me life, the culmination of it, then if I don't achieve that, then I failed. Versus if the biggest thing is the process, the biggest thing is the journey, not the destination. So like when you're surfing, and I know again, I'm extrapolating this because I'm not a surfer. But when you're surfing, the biggest thing is not to get to the shore. The biggest thing is to be riding that wave, right? Um, and actually that whole process of presencing yourself to the opportunity for that wave, and then being able to catch that wave, and then being able to ride that wave. It's not to be at shore, right? Because if that were the goal, why would you even leave shore to go catch the wave in the first place? So in this case, for me, it's not the culmination, like the eco park opening. And then once the eco park opens, that's a whole new part of the adventure, right? But it's getting from here to there. It's the journey. It's the pathway that twists and turns and leads to unexpected, miraculous, and exciting places that were unanticipated and unimagined, right? To connecting with new people, to it's the journey itself that is life. It's the journey itself that is the gift. And that's why, you know, it would be great to be able to see the eco park come to existence. It would be amazing. And that's my intention. It's not my goal, it's my intention. And that intention can live beyond me if need be too. So Rosalind says the eco park can be seen like giving birth to a new child, an expression of perfect self. Well, I definitely agree with you that it could be seen like giving birth to a new child, except that the gestation period for this is years. So I think it's giving birth to a new humanity, giving birth to a new way of being, a new conception, and not just for me, you know, and it is for me too. It's getting reborn ongoingly. I'm so excited. I made commitments to take 2 courses to support me in being able to create the framework to integrate all these very many different pieces of this humongous vision, and to ground it in the material also, you know, in terms of strategic processes, and to give it the most solid foundation. So the one course, and I've talked to you about it before, and there's still time to register for it if you're interested. And I highly recommend that you look into it, whether you would do the course or not. There's a guy named Zach Weiss who started an organization called Water Stories, and it's about healing the water cycle. That's where the concept for the Water Cycle Symposium came from. And if you go to community.waterstories.com, you can get accepted into the community, and that will give you access to be able to see the videos that they've created and to learn what's possible in transforming and healing our planet, and to be able to be working in positive partnership with the planet. So anyway, I've registered for that course, which is a minimum of 3 months. And as a founding member, this is the opportunity for founding members. It's $270 a month for founding members. And hopefully it's going to be global, that there'll be people from all over the world involved with it, which is really exciting. And the other course, and I keep forgetting the name of it, is from an organization called Regenesis Group. And it is all about regenerative development, but it's more so than that. It's about a new way of thinking, a new way of conceptualizing regeneration and our relationship with place and our world. You know, to be looking at things from a different place of presence and essence. And I am so excited about it because these folks are people that I would be consulting with to be putting this eco park concept and actuality together. So it's very, very amazing to be thinking about our vision and our mission, because we talk about that a lot, and how powerful purpose is as a lodestar, you know, as something that can guide us in our lives, that guides us through our lives, and allows us to experience resilience in a way that isn't otherwise available to us. Good morning. Rosalind says, allow life to unfold on its own versus manifestation difference. Well, it's the same, because I guess the less we resist, the more we manifest, right? And the more we, because as I had an experience a while back where I was reading something about identity and who are you, and people on the street were asked who they are, and it made me think. And truly, the more I've thought about it, and I've said this to you over and over, all of you, is who am I? I am life expressing itself through me. That whatever the identity is that I have is quite fluid. It's really quite fluid, and it's a construct. And outside of that is when I allow life to flow through me as this particular and unique expression of life, as I allow life to flow through me more purely, then it's manifesting, right? It's manifesting in its purest way. I think maybe the distinction, or maybe the separation that's driving that question, is the notion of will versus life unfolding. And I think that life unfolding is us being in our purest expression of our soul song, you know. So in that respect, even when we create resistance for ourselves, that's also life unfolding. And so life can't unfold on its own through us without us being part of the picture, you know, whatever our soul song is. And we get to wrestle with it and resist it, or succumb to it in certain situations, or surrender joyfully, or embrace it, right? So like all those parts are part of it. And when we can accept and allow life in all its expressions, including our resistance, including our joy, our despair, our, you know, the whole spectrum of it, then as we accept that more and more, there's less and less resistance around it, I think. Yes, so Rosalind says, akin to a canoe flowing down the water, being carried by the flow, looking around, or the notion of paddling. So the destination is the same. Ultimately, I think it is. I mean, ultimately, there is no destination. Ultimately, it is just its wholeness, right? Like a destination is separating oneself from that destination, right? But what if it's just the process? What if even what we think is the destination is the process, you know, okay, so when we talk about destination, when we talk about goals, the thing to be alert to is, so many people believe that, they what they are striving for is the house with the white picket fence and the job where they're making however much money they're making, and the dog and the spouse and the kids, and like that's the goal. And then they get the goal, they get to the destination, and it's like, yeah, how come I feel so empty? How come my life doesn't feel fulfilled? I've got all the stuff, I've achieved all the benchmarks, and how come now I feel empty? And that's because of the lack of purpose. That's because of the lack of the bigger vision. So sometimes it takes getting to the quote unquote destination in order to recognize that ain't it, right? And so instead, if we're not like doing all these sacrifices to get to some certain place, if instead we have those, instead of being sacrifices, we make them into choices, and we are present to the journey, then it's a whole different ballgame, right? Because then if maybe we don't want the white picket fence, maybe we give ourselves opportunity along the way to say, I want a purple fence, or I don't want a fence, or, like there are opportunities to be choosing as we're present to the journey. Is like, what's the quality of my life now? I could die in any moment, right? And I'm not saying that means that we be ultimately hedonistic, but I think we get to be advised by the imminence of our demise to be able to say, how am I living my life? How am I living my life? And that's part of riding the wave. That's what it's about, is riding the wave, and also being in the calmness of the pool when the wave hasn't yet arrived. So Rosalind says, trust that your boat safely reaches the next place along the way. Yeah, or that your boat is safely guided. Even though when we experience times when we're not experiencing safety at all, that overall it's all part of a bigger picture, and every part matters. So with that, I just thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate these morning conversations with you. They bring me alive and help me to see things in new ways as well. And I hope that that's your experience too. So I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you. Hi, Dido. So good to have you here with us. Welcome. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, EWN One with the Earth, Enlightened World Living. And I hope to see you back here again really, really soon. So much love to you.